We're digging into Assassin's Creed Mirage. I'm going to talk a little bit about how stealth could improve, how this could be a legendary game if they wanted it to be. Now, firstly, a couple of disclaimers. No spoilers in this, although I am playing, I'm very far in the game. To give you an idea, I've been playing for, let's see here. It says 31 hours. I just got it a couple of weeks ago. So this is kind of near the end of the game. I've got most of the map unlocked, but it's because it's open world. It's not going to be any real spoilers here. I'm just doing like I think a side mission. Let's see. I think I got a side mission here. Yeah, nope, no contracts. But it's mostly going to be me talking about, specifically I want to talk about, Assassin's Creed 1, this game is pretty good. 2, there's some things that they could do better. There's some things that Assassin's Creed could do. Let's say if I were to apply some thinking like what they did in Metal Gear, if I were to apply some better approach to stealth, like what makes a stealth game better than what we're seeing, in these later iterations, I would say I'm going to start with some things that the game does really well. This isn't like a review. By the way, I'm literally just playing it in real time because I don't want to write out a big review and all that. This is like my impressions of it after playing a large chunk of it. I'm really happy with what they've done. I think it makes a lot of sense to do a city because there's a lot of times where you're revisiting locations. You get a sense of the world being a bit more, how do we say it, alive, because you're going back to the same Assassin's Bureau and you're meeting with characters in familiar locations, sometimes returning to locations. Sometimes you'll run down an alleyway and you're like, oh, I've been here before. And so that kind of creates this feeling of the place being something that you could kind of familiarize yourself with. And it also, from the development standpoint, it gives the developers a way to, I guess you'd say, give it more customization. There's a lot less cut and paste, copy paste than what you would see in say Syndicate, where you might see the same building many times in repeated fashion, and you might get lost or feel like, oh, I've been here. I've been to exactly a place that looks exactly like this, but it's supposed to be a different place, and this doesn't have as much of that. This definitely feels like as you're running through these corridors and these passageways and whatnot, it feels much more like you're. Oh, I've been spotted. I got a very high wanted level right now, by the way, and I'm supposed to be looking for these. See that little map looking thing? It's got a little wanted poster. That's what I'm looking for. Sometimes there's a guy that you can bribe to lower your wanted level. But citizens will turn you in if they see you and you have a high wanted level. And I've got really elite assassins coming after me right now because I have a 3 wanted level. This guy will take it all off. See, nice.
Could you silence those who smeared me?
Ooh, see that yellow marker means they're coming after me. Okay, so I just got to lose the authorities here. Got a little bit of Gentleman Jack here, just a tiny little bit. I don't have a drinking problem unless I can't get a drink. That's a little alcoholic joke for you, but it's not true. I actually only drink whiskey about maybe once every 2 weeks. And it's just when I need to take the edge off. It's the holiday. I want to hope that everybody had a restful Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. If you're not, well, then you guys need to get one. It's great. It's a good chance to eat a lot of food and spend time with family. It's a good time. I went and visited my Korean family. My wife is Korean. Just so I got back from that today, which is nice. I've been playing a lot of this game on my, I almost called it the Nintendo Portal. That's that whiskey kicking in. No. Got the PlayStation Portal and been playing a lot of it while laying in bed at night before bed, which is kind of nice because then I get to really just zone out on this world before bed. So I've been having some cool dreams. I really like the universe itself, this world that they've built for the golden age of Baghdad in Iraq, which is in the 9th century. And it's very beautiful, architecturally. First of all, It's a beautiful city. Look at this. Look at this map. It's a big ring city, or the round city, and this whole central area is like a big garden. And there's different like districts, and you have slightly different like mosques or churches, and there's a sense of place. There's a real sense of like, oh, this is the market district over here or wherever, and over here's where they keep the prisons, and over here's where they like grow all the coconuts and stuff, and like there's definitely a feeling that like there's a planned city, and that leads me to some of the things that they could improve upon, which is that, for instance, like if you sit and watch this guy, they'll literally do this all day. The characters do not have any kind of a routine or a life of anything that they're doing, and no amount of me running through and disrupting their day is going to mess that up or change that. They'll still just be sitting here. If a guy is rolling out rugs, he'll literally roll out 2,000 rugs in a day's time. And that's something where, like, if we look at something like, say, Red Dead Redemption 2, each of the characters, I don't know if you were familiar with this game, but Red Dead Redemption 2, every single character has a daily routine. So, like, the guy who goes out and chops wood, he goes out and chops wood, and then he goes back to his home where he lives. And there's more of a sense of place when you have that kind of a thing going on, and more of a sense that the player character is affecting that world when they're disrupting their day, and to some degree, that level of immersion and emergent gameplay could be applied here to where you could have an actual, like, a cart going through the town, and if that cart doesn't deliver its goods to the shop, then that shop doesn't have all of its restock in place. And that sort of a thing could be done here, or the blacksmith guy, if you don't fulfill a certain quest, then maybe that blacksmith guy isn't there. There's things like that could be done. And by the way, I don't work at Ubisoft. I don't know anybody that does. But, if they watched this video, then, hey man, I've had more impact than you might think on like games like Tears of the Kingdom. Watch my Tears of the Kingdom video, my Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel video, because we didn't know what it was going to be called. And I was like, hey, here's a bunch of ideas for Nintendo. They used some of them. So, hey, here's some ideas for Assassin's Creed. Another thing that I'd like to see is, now we've got our things like, hiding in barrels like this, or bins of grass or hay, and diving off of rooftops to land in them, and then you get to hide in those things, and that's really nice. But something that I think would be really key would be the ability to kind of like crawl through, like, crawl spaces. Like, one of the things that's really cool, it makes like a game like Metal Gear Solid 5 particularly really replayable, is the multiple entries into a base. And first of all, Metal Gear doesn't have anything like an immersive, like as big of a world as this. This is like a town, and so I don't know how well this could work, but I would love to see like multiple different pathways into a base. And I'm not just talking about like, oh, bribe the guards and they'll, let you in, or bribe the mercenaries that'll then go and distract the guards. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like straight up, there are, wells or waterways, passageways underground, or even like holes in the wall that for instance, that Basim could have like climbed up into and then crawled. We get into like a first person view and we're crawling in through these little holes in the walls. Things like that could have been really interesting. And also give the player a real sense that they're making choices. It's not just like, because a lot of times when you're sneaking into a base in this game, it does feel like, well, it's the same trick that I've done in the last 3 bases. Now, certainly this game does a lot more variety than what we've seen. There's like, for instance, missions where you're supposed to follow like a corrupt merchant or somebody. Very Tenchu style, you're along the rooftops, you're following this guy, and then it's almost as if there's like a pathway kind of laid out for you to follow him. But that, again, feels very like scripted. Don't these things look like warheads? They got WMDs over here in Iraq. Anyway, it's an old joke. Some of you will get it. But yeah, So like giving the player a few more ways to, for instance, like, sneak into a highly secured location, a garrison or whatever. Like here's an example. That is the wall, by the way. This big outer wall around the round city is a wall, and there are checkpoints. But for the most part, there isn't really even a lot of consequence to getting spotted. So like for instance, here's two things that they could fix right away. Watch this. I run up, I get spotted, it doesn't matter. Look. Boom. And this isn't because I'm high level. And then look, you just run away. That's not because I'm like high level that, oh, they couldn't catch me. It's because there's not really a lot of consequence to the game. And this is one of the reasons why I actually think that one of the things that this game taught us is that Assassin's Creed doesn't need to be an RPG. Being able to unlock new abilities is really a cool factor, like unlocking new gear. But giving us, leveling like they did in the past only makes getting caught in a stealth situation completely mundane or ineffective. It doesn't matter if you get caught because your combat's just going to be like swish, swish, you're done. And I think improving the effectiveness of enemy soldiers would make them more deadly, more dangerous. And to me, that would be more fun. And in a lot of ways, I don't know. I mean, some players are going to go, oh, but that would slow down the gameplay. It's like, yeah, but right now, some of the enemies are really dumb. Like you saw, they spotted me. They can run across the roofs. They don't pursue you at all. And some of that is also because the AI hasn't really changed much in the last, I'd say, 4 games. In fact, this is all built on the same engine as Valhalla. And you can see it. You can see it in the enemy's behaviors. The other thing I'd suggest is like more enemy types. We really only have 3 types. There's I don't want to spoil it, but they're mostly humanoid. They're all humanoid. They're just normal soldiers. And for the most part, they just have different kind of like, depending on their weapon, different like block abilities or whatever. But you're not really facing any enemies in a unique way other than the guys that have more armor on them. And again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but yes, there are some, it's not too big of a spoiler to say there's some enemies that you can't just throw a dagger at their head, for example. And I think that that's good. I think that's smart. But they're really a lot of the same abilities that we've had throughout most of the Assassin's Creed games. And I want to be careful when I'm talking about this, because I'm not saying, when I'm talking about how they could improve it, I'm not saying anything here is bad. I'm saying that like, this could be the most legendary game ever made because of the setting. The golden age of Baghdad is like freaking beautiful Arabic architecture, incredible graphics, like the atmospheric effects, the sunsets, the costumes, the language, the timeline of what's going on in this world, like the conflicts between religions, all these things. But I can just roll in, take out one guy, and then double assassinate. This is like, that's not because I've been playing for 30 hours. That's something you can do from the first, 5 minutes of the game. And I think that makes the guards and the enemies pose so little of a threat that I'm not even concerned with stealth. I'm not concerned with replaying any missions. I'm not concerned with whether I can do that mission without getting spotted, or I'm never really challenged by the enemy AI. And I think that the thing that I would say if I were directing this game, I would say, we're going to put an entire small team of 5 people just focused on evolving the AI of the pursuit and how they're talking to each other. For example, a great example of this would be in the Phantom Pain Metal Gear Solid 5. I had an instance where one character spotted me, or he thought he saw me, so he called to another soldier that was patrolling and said, "Hey, go check it out. I think I saw him behind the crates." That gave me this really crazy sense that they knew each other, that they were talking to each other, and that there was a kind of a language between them, and that they were interacting with more than just the environment around them or me, but that they were really aware of their surroundings. And that's why I say, we no longer need just more beautiful graphics. What we need now is a much more rich world. And what I mean by that is like enemies that talk to each other, enemies that try to figure out what's around them. And that leads me to things like footprints, for example. Like, there's no snow in this world, but if they spotted a body and that body's in the mud, if Kojima directed an Assassin's Creed, he'd have those footprints left in the mud, and the soldier or the enemy would spot the footprints and go, whose footprints are those? And then follow them to where he thinks that the player is going. And you can set traps with that. And I think that this is the big thing, my one big thing that I think Assassin's Creed needs to put more time into. They got it right with thinking about like, hey, let's focus on one town and let's really make it a familiar place for the player, and let's make the districts really unique and identifiable so you could like recognize, oh, I'm on the eastern side of town, or oh, I'm on the western side of town, or whatever. They were right in doing that, giving the player a sense of like, oh, I'm going to go back to the same bureau and maybe even upgrade the bureau. They don't let you do that in this game, I want to be clear. But that would be another factor that they could do, is like give the player a sense that they're really impacting and affecting their Assassin's Guild, for example, raising the status of it. So like those are just a handful of things just regarding like AI. I'm sure I'll think of a couple more. Other things to consider are like, again, if we were to look at, well, let's see, what would Kojima do? Like the master of stealth design, when you get a tool, like in this game, you get 6 tools. And this is not spoiler, but I'll just talk about the top few. It's like you get a torch. You can really only use the torch for one thing. You can use a torch to light dark areas. And you can throw it. I dropped it. But here's the thing. Let's say that you throw the torch. The soldiers never react to a thrown torch. They could be guarding something. They won't walk over and go, who threw that? That's again, going back to enemy AI. Like there's no reacting to the tools that the player is using, You've got things like this, like designated, hey,
I could use a distraction.
Let's blend into the crowd. And this is cool. And I do think that they need these sorts of things, like keep this stuff, But give us more to play around with. So, like, allow the player to use that torch to, for instance, like start a fire in a certain spot that then the guards like rush to try to put out the fire, and this isn't like wholly original thinking. It's like they did that in Far Cry, they have that AI in other games. It's not like it's a completely new concept. It's just do what you do, but do it a little better,
Keep calm.
And that's what I'm kind of getting at is there are a lot of systems here, but the systems themselves need to evolve. And if they can do that, that creates so much infinite replayability. For example, like if I get spotted, there's no way for me to like run around the corner and hide in a barrel or hide in a box or anything to escape them. I just have to find a set thing in the location, like a hay barrel in the location, or one of these rooftop little, I think there's one right here, whatever you call this thing, like a pagoda type of a thing. You can hide in something like this if they're pursuing you and they've lost sight of you. So that's cool, but as a player, I'm sort of like, well, let me do that wherever the hell I am, like give me that freedom to do that wherever I am. And we've really not gotten that sort of like truly sequel to Metal Gear. Like Metal Gear Solid 5 was pretty much the pinnacle of stealth games. Even Death Stranding doesn't really have stealth in it. I mean, it does, but it's not a game about that. And I could see doing something where there was a while where they were talking about something with Raiden, Metal Gear Rising, look up the trailer for that. It was originally like a concept where it was going to be stealth mixed with cybernetic ninja, action. And I think that, had Kojima looked at something like this at the time, he probably could have brought a lot of that sort of thinking to the table of a lot of the things that I'm talking about in this video. Other things that I think would be really cool, and I mentioned it briefly before, but being able to affect the world. So like, for instance, what would be really cool for Assassin's Creed is, imagine, if you're on these rooftops, imagine if there was a way for you to kind of create some of your own pathways. So it's not just like this preset, a lot of times while you're running through, you'll be like hauling ass trying to escape from, an enemy or a bunch of patrols or whatever. And you'll find like this kind of like, there's a set path, and it's very clear that they wanted you to run along this path, along the roofways, along the rooftops, and like they'll put that like right on the corner. What if you could actually come in and like, I don't know, maybe even like pay a character to set one up in the way that you want to set up your escape route. So you can almost like plan an escape route. So if you're infiltrating a base or, some kind of a prison or something like that, you can kind of create your own escape route. These are the things that I would push for if I were directing, by the way. If I were directing not that this is just me goofing off. I'm never going to direct a Assassin's Creed game. But if I were directing an Assassin's Creed game, that's the kind of stuff that I would push for. It's like that level of player customization, that level of like being able to affect the world and plan your own escape routes and even set up your own catapults and your own ropeways and your own like if you could if you could even like kind of go through the street and push a hay barrel, one of those hay carts, push it to where you you're going to want to escape to. Whoops. I'm just goofing off, by the way, so I'm gonna get spotted from time to time. All I've been doing is just running around. No real objective. But yeah, like this. Like, what if you could set up your own rope and go like, oh yeah, like this, that's really gonna come in handy. Or, I find that oftentimes I wish that rope led to a different rooftop. I mean, you just go in and like, between missions, you can change the direction that escape rope connects, or as you're playing the game, you're watching, or maybe you even like see somebody building parts. You can go over and like fund them to finish building that escape route. That would be really cool. Or another factor would be being able to get around town. Like, how are these other characters getting around town? Maybe they need like not a taxi service, but maybe you need some of those guys with a little pushcart thing. You can hitch a ride with the guys like pushing the pushcart thing around. And just kind of get like a first-person view of cruising through town, cruising through the city, seeing the living city, like a GTA game. Like taking a cab ride in GTA 5 was an extraordinary experience because like you're going through places you already know, you're very familiar with them. There's a lot of replay value. And I think that that's the thing that I'm kind of really getting at with everything that I'm talking about here is replay value. I want underwater entrances to locations. I want little caves and underground passageways and hidden passageways that a stealth assassin could find. Only a stealth assassin could find those hidden passages. I want that kind of thinking, and I want a little bit more of a, like with blades, secondary weapons, maybe you have to collect all the stuff to craft them yourself instead of just going to a shop to buy them. Maybe you literally have to collect the parts or steal the parts, and maybe there's like locations within the town where that you start to learn that you can get all those parts. So all the iron that I need to craft my daggers is in, that building right there. And so I've set up an escape route so that I can sneak in there anytime I need iron to get more crafting materials for my iron daggers, This is just spitballing, obviously. And it's also just fun to think about and imagine, ways that a game could be better, a game could be more improved or more fun over the long term. And again, I think it's wise to scope down the world, but make that world more dense. Not just with art. Like what we have here is a much more dense with art kind of a world. Look at this little cove that I just found. This little like yard. It's really cool, right? Oh, did I scare that guy with my torch? I did. You know, like it's really neat that they even have this little cove here, and there's like people inside of there, and they took the time. There's like the artist did an amazing job with bringing life to the world. You got like a fishing thing over here, and then there's like barrels with the fish in it. You know, I don't know, is this even really near the water though? Like, how'd this get over here? It's weird. Is there storytelling there? You know, like that's another thing when we look at like Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. There's storytelling and everything. You might go into some cabin and you find like, you know, some dead body and the guy's got a note on him or something that suggests that, you know, his wife he was going to leave his wife and that she killed him, you know, or things like that. I don't see enough of that sort of visual storytelling in the world itself, you know, or most people are just standing around. I mean, she's building something. She's going to be laying those bricks all day. Look at that. Oh, she's actually pouring the bricks. She's got this huge clay pot with nothing in it. Concrete in it, maybe, I guess. Or whatever that material is. Adobe or concrete. I don't know what it is. But, like, the scaffolding is cool, but it implies that they're building stuff, but then we don't ever actually see it get finished. So that feels like sort of like hinting at something that could have been more. And I don't know, like maybe they already did talk about these things, and maybe they were just like, you know what, we just need to deliver what we've always done, but do it in a little bit better way. And that's what they did succeed at that. So overall, though, I definitely rank it as like one of my favorite Assassin's Creeds, primarily because of this. Look, crouch. The game is good. You should definitely get it, especially if you like Assassin's Creed games or if you like stealth games or you like open world games. It's a nice size. I like a nice 20, 30 hour game. It's fantastic.